Hello again, this is Preheat. Welcome back to another World of Warcraft video. So, came out with my previous video doing an analysis of the mage specs, and we have another update. So essentially, Blizzard has nerfed fire. They've also attempted to buff Frostfire fire, but it's not really anywhere close to where it should be, not enough for it to really be a thing. The new number for Frostfire is 5.144 in single target. The new number for Sunfury is around 5.6. Might be closing on 5.7 once we change out some of the gear, but yeah, mastery is down big time, and that has had a huge effect on the mage talents overall for fire. And also 3% nerf. You may not have caught that if you saw it on Wowhead. They didn't actually have the 3% nerf in the notes initially, but Blizzard forgot to include that, and they've now added it into the notes. And so yes, we are actually nerfed by 3% for fire. So with all of that changing, we have to recreate the graph. So I went ahead and did that. And I want to show you what the current trends are. I'm not going to make this video as long as the previous one, because I think you can already get kind of an idea of what specs are good for where based on just rewatching that. But here are the new numbers. And as you can see, the age of frost is upon us. Yes, winter is coming. Fire is, it's still okay. Like, it's not terrible. And the difference between where it was before and where it is now compared to, like, let's say the best spec last tier and where fire was at, it's about equivalent. In fact, it might even be a smaller gap. So like fire is definitely not terrible. It's not off the table. It's just that, you know, frost is one of those specs where it always seems a little higher and we kind of ignore it for a little bit. Usually, me personally, I'll look to see if it's within like 8% of like the next highest single target. And once it gets to that threshold and it starts going a little above it, that's when I start really paying attention to frost, because that's where things like whatever sort of niche you have or defensives capabilities, funnel, stuff like that, it starts to kind of fade away because you're just tuned so high as a baseline that it just makes you really good. And also, Frost is pretty good at 2-target cleave. So here, this is the same chart. This is just only 5 targets, right? And it's also scaled logarithmically so that you can see better how the numbers compare to each other, right? So like, check this out. Look at the difference here in single target. Frost is just way ahead, right? 6.1 milli over here. The next best one that isn't Frost is Sunfury at 5.7. That's a rather large gap. In fact, I would be surprised if they don't do something to tune this down just a bit. But look at 2 targets. 9.94 million, right? Look at Arcane's 2 target, 8.4. This is playing a build like a Mythic Plus oriented build to try and get more damage into 2 target. Sunfury Fire at 2 target, 8.1 million. 9.9, guys. I get it. Like, Frost's niche is 2 target, but it's astounding to see that gap be so large. I would love if Frost was just like the 2 to 3 target spec, right? The issue is it's not. It just is a slightly better at 2 targets, but it's just scaled very high in single target right now. But as you can see, those red lines, they're looking mighty small there, kind of low on that chart. Now, Arcane still has a lot of value, right? And I think for Mythic Plus, Arcane still has a job to do. It is the equalizer. It's not there to top the overall. It's there to make the big mob's health go down so that the big AoE pumpers can take care of the rest of the pull for you, right? So I don't think Arcane is losing any sort of big value there. You know, you can obviously play Frost and probably do more overall, but your keys might be slower because those high health mobs, they're going to live for longer. Fire, it's probably fine to keep playing Fire. I mean, honestly, like, all 3 specs should be fairly good in Mythic Plus. The tuning that I'm more concerned about is raids, specifically because a lot of these bosses are like 1 to 2 target, and Frost is just like super duper strong. But hey, I've got good news. This bolt spam build for Frostfire that you know, is doing so hot here, the highest single target simming one. It's like super easy to play, very simple. You can probably get this down just practicing for like 20 minutes on the PTR. Basically, you are just hitting your Glacial Spike with the Winter's Chill. You're Comet Storming into that Winter's Chill. And you're only really using Ice Lance if you're either at 0 icicles or if you're at 4 to get to 5. Aside from using your cooldowns, you're kind of just Frostfire bolting until you hit, like, let's say 3 icicles. And then you're flurrying, and then you're at 5, and then you can Glacial Spike. Alternatively, you could, you know, be going up with your Frostfire bolts. And let's say you put up your flurry and you're at 4 icicles, you do 1 Ice Lance, that brings you to 5, then you Glacial Spike. So essentially, you're just like hitting 5, Glacial Spiking into Ice Lance, or you're hitting 4 and then Ice Lancing into Glacial Spike. But in both cases, you're doing it with Winter's Chill up on the target. Yeah, I'll probably make more content about it later, but Bolt Slinger is just really, really effective and super duper simple. You don't even use Frozen Orb. That's the funniest part. So yeah, that's the big picture. Oh, I also added Funnel to this too, because I feel like it's important to understand just like how much value Arcane gets with additional targets. Also, Frost does have some Funnel as well, right? It's important to note that. But so for Spell Slinger, right, we're looking at Funnel that goes all the way up in the AoE build to 40%, 41% at 8 targets. That's new, right? Like your Funnel used to be kind of limited to 5 targets, or at least somewhat limited. But now going up to 8, because you have the tier bonus, which scales up to 8, we are having levels of Funnel that we've never seen before. I mean, Arcane is just like a funnel machine, right? We're looking at a situation where in single target, maybe they're doing like 5.7 million. You add Funnel to that, and you could be doing on that main target, you could do like upwards of like 7.4 mil, something like that. Just crazy amounts. Yeah, and so that is what is scaled here on this chart. So you can see 40% up here. Arcane getting a lot more Funnel than Frost, but Frost does have some Funnel there. Okay, so moving on to Frost. So here are the comparisons of the different builds. As you can see, there's a pretty wide gap when it comes to the higher target counts, but obviously that's not where we're going to be for the most part. I'm just showing you that so that you can see how it skews out. But yeah, single target, if you're playing Frostfire the normal way versus if you're playing bolt spam, fairly close. But at 2 targets, you know, it's going to be a little bit better to actually use your Ice Lances, obviously, because they're splitting ice, right? And then as the AoE kind of comes in there, you're having the Cone of Cold combos and other stuff. Spell Slinger also kind of all right. Like it's definitely within that range in single target where you could play it if you want to. But yeah, going to be way more mobile, so might be preferable to some Frost mages. On the Arcane side of things, not much has changed, but I guess the numbers are slightly up. I still don't have like a good APL for this, so I'm not sure if this is entirely accurate, but I think it's probably close. For Spell Slinger, I could see it going up a bit though, because I think the APL was still optimized around getting a Harmony stack for every Splinter and also getting 2 Harmony stacks for every Blast, and that just doesn't happen anymore. But overall, it's just going to be more Blasts and Missiles and Orb casts, so not a huge deal there. And then for Fire, this is where we had the biggest changes, right? Big nerfs. So if you remember my numbers from before, Sun Fury was at like 6 million, right? Now we're at 5.6. Frostfire was at like 4.8. What's funny is they buffed Frostfire. They were trying to like bring it in line, right? But then the Ignite nerf that they did totally counteracted that, right? So they basically they made up for almost all of the buffs that they did just by removing all that value on Ignite. So we're kind of where we started. It's funny, people keep talking about this tuning pass as like a Frostfire buff for Frostfire Fire, but like it's more of a fire nerf in general. I guess technically Frostfire is slightly up from where it was before, but it's still just like not really at a point where you would even play it. So yeah, it's not, I don't think Frostfire is really on the table. They need to buff it more probably before we give it any attention. But yeah, that's kind of the state of things. Oh, I did also add this here. So this is how much burst you go into your opener, because, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, well, the burst will make up for it for Arcane. Kind of depends on when the damage amps happen, right? And I do agree, there are fights where that will happen, but as you can see here on the opener, this is over 40 seconds, like Arcane, 9.3 million burst. Frost up there too, right? 9.2. So yeah, depending on when those damage amps happen, Frost could just be the GOAT in raid. So yeah, I expect this to change more, right? I just want to give you the update since I just came out with the other one. We just want to constantly be updating them as Blizzard makes the changes. But what I'm hoping for is that they give Frostfire Fire some love. I think actually Sun Fury Fire at this point is tuned to a level where it's actually balanced. Like, I think it's fine. What I want to see is Frostfire come up a lot. I think if they can bring Frostfire up to like 5.7, something like that, I would be really happy with the tuning for this. Perhaps bring Frost down a little bit as well. But that's just my own personal preference. Anyways, if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more of my content, be sure to subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.